Alright, welcome back to Open Topics, episode 30. We have some Marvel DC news that came out today from New York Comic Con. So, the first major thing announced from this particular thing was a new set. Well, first of which, there was a new Moon Knight book coming out next year, and it's still getting written by Jed MacKay. It's just that the current Moon Knight book, Fist of Cthulhu, is being relaunched at the 16 issues to just Moon Knight. First time in a few years, basically, it's been since Moon Knight, because first it was Vengeance of Moon Knight, then it was Fist of Cthulhu, now it's back to Moon Knight again. Now, of course, basically, his other books are interesting, to say the least. Yes. So then we have the Shadows of Tomorrow initiative, which, first of which, X-Men was still continuing under Jed MacKay with the same numbering. Yep, no change with that one. Uncanny X-Men, they're not going to reveal anything with that one because it's related spoilers, but they have announced several new titles. Well, Wolverine is going to continue, no problem. I think it's going to have a brand new writer. They're reviving the Cyclops title, which I found that to be interesting. I think Alex Preva is basically doing the writing for this book. Fun fact, this actually is the first new... By the way, these books come out next year. This is the first solo Cyclops book released at the time, this point next year. First time in 11 years, man, Cyclops book. Yes. And then we had the return of Generation X 23. Interesting it's called this. Where it's like combining two different names. It's like a brand new title for Laura, probably after her Sabretooth miniseries wraps up. Yes. This one they announced Jody Howell's writing title, which is interesting. And then we have Inglorious X-Force, where the lineup is simply Doc as Wolverine, Boom Boom, and Cable. Interesting. I don't think they've announced a writer for this book yet. There's also Magic and Colossus. Yes. I am not kidding about that. That is seriously a title. There is a brand new Rogue title. Now, Rogue, this is interesting. This is the first, well, that's not, this apparently is the first, this is a miniseries, just something called Rogue. This is the first one with now a subtitle with it. First time since 2004. Yes. Storm is being relaunched. From what I've heard about the creative team for this book, it's the same people from the previous book, no problem. Deadpool is coming back. Do not know who's writing this book, per se, but yeah. Also, for some weird reason, not sure why, the picture of... Like, you've looked very closely. People pointed this out, though. Emma Frost, for some reason, is dead center for this X-Men lineup. For some reason, Rogue is taking her back to camera. And someone pointed this out, though, that Emma Frost is grabbing Rogue's butt. Not sure why. Okay, we have the creative teams from it. Of course, also that, let's see. Wolverine still Sada Ahmed, no change there. Yeah, right about that one there. Okay, so Inglorious X-Force is written by Tim Seeley. Interesting that they choose him to write this book. I'm a little surprised they brought the book back for X-Force because last book ended after only 10 issues. And from what I've heard about when the book ended, because... Well, when the book ended, Jeffrey Thorne, the writer, had no idea the book was ending. Let's hope Inglorious X-Force can last more than 10 issues this time. Magic Colossus is done by Ashley Allen. I'm not familiar with this writer. Rogue is done by Erica Sanchez, who I think the only books I read basically that she did the second volume for Daredevil Woman Without Fear. Storm, Earth's Mightiest Mutant, still the same writer, Maura Audrey. Widows and Deadpool was written by Ben Percy. Damn, how many titles this guy gets? So, from what I can tell anyways, I'm glad the fact that Wolverine is not being launched, which Thank God, because we just had a relaunch of this thing just not even like over a year ago. So, thank God we're not relaunching the book, per se. Yeah. So, they also announced a few crossovers. There is Spider-Man Venom Death Spiral, Godzilla Infinity Roar. There is apparently a new... Let's see. No, that's not it. Infinity War thing was first thing announced, and then it was Death Spiral crossover. And then we also have Queen in Black. And this is possibly done by Al Ewing. I get the reason why they call it Queen in Black, because it was the popular King of Black story, which a lot of praise for that one. Then we have the X-Men, which I discussed already. Let's see. Okay, so they have confirmed officially that the Ultimate Universe titles will be ending next year. Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Black Panther, Ultimates, all ending, and Ultimate X, all ending issue 24. Ultimate Wolverine is ending issue 16. Now, Ultimate Spider-Man is ending first in December. A month later, in January, it's Ultimate Black Panther. Ultimate X is ending in February. Ultimate's ending in April, and also Ultimate Wolverine's ending in April. Like, okay. Now, this felt like basically that famous RKO out of nowhere, where we have a brand new Iron Man title written by Joshua Williamson. Now, this is interesting, because I saw him on the Reddit. Plus, I love the fact they brought back the old school 90s logo for this book. Awesome. That's awesome. It looks like we have Citizen V, War Machine, Madam Mask. Looks like possibly Pepper's back, along with, I don't know who that woman is. Here's a little fun fact about Josh Williamson in writing a Marvel title. This is the first Marvel title he's written since Illuminati ended back in, I kid you not, 2015. So, I saw this, I'm like, wow, this came out of nowhere. I did not expect this, because prior to this, the Iron Man title just ended just a couple months ago, and I was really hoping to get a new Iron Man title, and now we got a new one, and it's Joshua Williamson, which, that is interesting. Of course, he did announce that he is not leaving Superman. And this is interesting, because with him doing this, and doing some Superman, I believe he's doing G.I. Joe, which means, I think currently he's doing 3 titles. Awesome. And then we have The Sorcerer Has Fallen, Long Live the Sorcerer Supreme, where we have a event, Crown New Sorcerer Supreme, which for some reason includes Susan Richards, Storm, Gambit, and looks like Captain Marvel. So we have people competing for this title. No announcement who's writing this book, but that's basically what it is. They did announce the aftermath of One World of Doom, known as Dungeons of Doom, and it's a mini-series done by Philip Kennedy Johnson, Ben Percy. Okay. Yeah, it's the aftermath of that storyline, so it's going to happen in January. You're like, okay, is there like any other new Marvel news? Well, they did announce that Jessica Jones and Daredevil reunite on Daredevil Born Again Season 2, which is nice. Of course, you already knew about Daredevil Season 2 coming. So, there's also X-Men 92 Season 3. Let's see. Was there anything else with them? They have most of Wonder Man. They announced Friendly with Spider-Man, the show on Disney Plus to get a Season 2. And that's it. I would say of all that stuff, I would say the biggest news of all this Marvel stuff is Josh Williamson doing Iron Man. That is, my opinion, the biggest news. But what about DC, you might ask? DC, oh boy, we do have updates for DC Comics. Yes, they do have the KO crossing right now, which now they also announced new Vertigo titles. Yep. And these Vertigo titles are Brutal Dark, Crying Doll, Nicaris, Men of Life, Bleeding Hearts, A Walking Shadow, another Nice House by the Sea, which probably Jason Ford probably doing that one again. Fantastic Black Tower, and 100 Bullets, U.S. of Anger, which is a follow-up to the previous 100 Bullets book by, of course, the same writer. They also have another Sirens book, Sirens Love Hurts by Teenie Howard, and an absolute Catwoman title. Yes. There is going to be a Swamp Thing miniseries that Rick Veitch is basically doing. It's a follow-up to a cancel. It's basically his canceled storyline where, get this, the storyline was going to be Swamp Thing meets Jesus Christ. Yes. They also announced a cross between Swamp Thing and Something's Killing the Children, which, interesting. But in my opinion, probably the second biggest news announcement we had out of all of this is the revival of these titles. The Return of Batwoman, and it's written by Greg Rucka. Interesting. Which makes the first time he has written this character since the Detective Comics run. Which, by the way, that was in 2008. So, by the time this comes out next year, it will have been 8 years since he wrote the character. The title itself ended back in 2017 when Margaret Bennett wrote the book. We do have a Zatanna book, which this one's written by, I think Rucka is going to do this title too. We have Lobo title. Yes, a Lobo title with the old school Lobo book title, which I thought was really cool. This is written by Scotty Young. Interesting, which makes this the third title I can think of he's written. A Demon book, which is probably the first one in a few years they've had one for him. A Barbara Gordon breakout book. These next three titles were interesting. We have the return of Deathstroke the Terminator, which first solo book for Deathstroke since like 2019. Since his book ended issue 50. No announcement who's writing the book yet. The return of Firestorm getting a solo book, which that's interesting. Because his last book, which was originally known as Firestorm, the Nuclear Man, later changed Nuclear Man, ended up for 20 issues. I think it ended back in 2013. So by the time this comes in next year, it would have been 13 years since this book ended. But this one, no creative team on this one. But probably the biggest series announced of this lineup is the return of Batman Shadow of the Bat for the first time. When this comes out next year, it would have been 26 years since this title ended. 26 years. And the last person for this title was Chuck Dixon as part of the well-received No Man's Land. Which, I find it interesting they make this title. Because here's kind of the thing with Batman. When it comes to him having like a third ongoing series, that's something DC's not explored in a while. Like, because for the past, like, I think let's see. I think since like 2017 was the last time he had a third book that wasn't Justice League or Batman Superman. Because at the start of Rebirth, you had 3 solo books. You had Detective Comics, Batman, and All-Star Batman. All-Star Batman ended after 1 year, so by the time this time comes, it's probably the first third slot solo book Batman's had in probably about 9 years. But 26 years since the book ended. Really cool they brought this book back. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. They did on some knockout books like Superman vs. Captain Atom, Joker vs. Red Hood. There's a Nightfall miniseries. There's something else really Nightfall. But the biggest announcement for DC Comics is an animated movie that is something that people have been begging DC Comics. This is probably one particular story that has had elements adapted here and there, but there's never been a full adaptation of the storyline. And also, fun fact, this is the first major storyline that was written by Chuck Dixon, adapted for a movie, a multi-part movie, and this is the biggest announcement DC has basically put out the gate. Next year, we're having part 1 of this adaptation, Batman Nightfall. I'm like, it's about freaking time that they did this. And Chuck Dixon himself was happy with it. I saw a comment that Kelly Jones himself is happy with it. Graham Nolan obviously is. Of course, we can't hear from Alan Grant because he passed away a few years ago. I'm sure he'll be happy to see this come out. Even Danny O'Neill, he probably felt the same way. Weirdly enough, of all the major Batman writers who were Batman in the 90s, and yet, of all people who wrote the titles, only Dixon is still alive. And like a few artists. And that's it. You're like, really? Yeah, it's true. It's damn true. Yeah, but you probably would think, like, of all the people who work in this storyline, like, who is left alive? Chuck Dixon, Graham Nolan, Kelly Jones, Doug Moak. Yes, he's still alive. He doesn't write comics anymore, but he is still alive. Let's see. The full creative team of this virtual storyline was, the writers were Chuck Dixon, Joe Duffy, Alan Grant, Doug Moak, and Danny O'Neill. Chuck is still very much alive. Alan Grant passed away just a few years ago. Never get to meet the guy. Danny O'Neill passed away in 2020. It's been 5 years. Doug Moak is still very much alive at the age of 77. The artists behind the original storyline were Jim Aparo. He's since passed away. Jim Ballant, still alive. He does Terror Witch of Black Rose. Edward Burrito. Is he still alive? No, he passed away in 2011. Brett Bivens. Still very much alive at the age of 65. Norm Brayfogle, awesome artist, passed away in 2018. Vincent Guerrero. He's still alive at the age of 64. Tom Grummett. Still very much alive in his mid-60s. Klaus Johnson, still alive at the age of 73. Barry Kitson, yes, he's still alive. Mike Manley, yep, 63. Graham Nolan, I know he is. Mike Boxberg, yep. Ron Wagner, yes, I actually met this guy, cool guy. But in case you're curious to who wrote basically the stuff that go on the storyline, well, Doug wrote Batman, Chuck wrote Detective, Robin, and then after the story he took over counting, but during the story was Joe Duffy. Shadow of Bat was Alan Grant. Legends Dark Knight, and there's like Task Force time that was done by the late Danny O'Neill. And I saw this, I'm like, I'm so happy. The fact that we're getting this. And they did announce who actually is directing this movie. The first part is going to be directed by Jeff Worsmer, which, not familiar with this guy. But what gave me a smile on my face, the fact that this guy is writing the script for it, and I met him this year. Currently the writer of Aquaman and Green Lantern, Jeremy Adams. I'm like, good choice. He has done scripts before. A lot of people are saying this online. Please, for the love of God, do not put Damian Wayne in this movie, because knowing DC Comics, they want to shove Damian where Tim's supposed to be. I think people are a little more forgiving with Hush, but this storyline, it has to be Tim. It cannot be Damian. Damian cannot be in the storm because he has nothing to do with Nightfall. So, Jeremy, if you're listening, Please do not put Damien in this movie. Do not put him in the Robin costume. Put Tim there in the costume he was wearing at that point. Like, it's not that hard, especially since the costume was designed by Neil Adams. Plus, you're being chipped with Neil Adams anyways. Also, I'm hoping for this. I'm hoping to see this credit on the screen. Batman Nightfall. The story originally created by, based on the story by Chuck Dixon, Graham Nolan, all these people. I hope they all get credited. Now, for Chuck, this was the second, according to him, this is the second time they've animated something he wrote. Last time was the episode Bullet for Bullock from Batman the Animated Series, but definitely the first film. Yes, this is the first ever animated movie based on anything he's ever written. Yes, he did have basically a work of it, which actually is adapted from a book he wrote. But animated movie, this is the first. And as someone who loves his work, I'm very happy. Very happy. So I think, who won in the end, basically, with big announcements? I mean, for Marvel, I would say the biggest announcement was Iron Man. By Josh Williams to write the book. For DC Comics, they had pretty good. I love the fact that these titles have in the old school logos. I thought that was really cool. But the biggest announcement for them is this movie. Yeah, and the fact it's come out next year. Yes. Who do I think would be in the movie per se? Well, Batman, of course. Since we have Cameron Conroy, some might think, like, who should play Batman? Like, let's see. Well, I'm sure they might get Troy Baker to do it, given the fact he's probably done Batman for quite a while. He might do it. Yes. For Bane, I would have the actor who plays in the movie give off a Spanish accent. Now, some of you might be asking this. Okay, we don't want Damien here. Fine. Does Harley need to be here in the storyline? Not really, no. Her involvement in the story is completely necessary. Like, I would say you could probably have her appear as a cameo, but I would not have, or I would give her a very tiny role, but do not have her play her part in the story, because she has nothing to do with the storyline. Yes, she came up, she did her debut prior to this very story, fine. But do not give her a big role in the story. Ivy does have a small section of story to do. But in the case of, well, this could be the first time we could see, Azrael, some might think, like, is this the first time he's been adapted? For animation, yes. Yes, he has. That's kind of the weird thing related to Azrael. He's only been in video games. Yes. He has been in live action. Well, as a version of him. But that wasn't Gotham, but that was nothing to do with his character. Yeah, for him, this is definitely the first time that he's ever appeared outside the comics in this form of fashion. Yeah, this is going to be something to include him. Bane, of course, has been featured very heavily since, well, he made his first ever appearance in the episode Batman the Animated Series, which, from what I heard, Dixon was very happy with the portrayal. Oh yeah, he was very appreciative about that. So am I thinking like, so this could be the anime debuts of Azrael. I would say, not Black Mask. No, not Black Mask. Black Mask, as far as I can tell, has appeared a couple times in outside of animation. Well, he appeared on The Batman. He appeared on Brave and the Bold. He also appeared in Under Red Hood and Bad Blood. So, at least he's had experience somewhat in the animation wise. Okay. Killer Croc, yeah, he's featured in pretty much a lot of the cartoons. Riddler, yes. Jeremy Arkham. Some I've been thinking, has he ever featured animation? No, he has not. So he's another character. Excuse me. I definitely, now, you might think, like, what about Scarecrow? Yes. Riddler, yes. Ivy, yes. Mad Hatter, yes. Ventriloquist, oh yes. Firefly, yes. There's a character Cavalier appears in storyline. He has never appeared as the comics. Well, he did appear, apparently, just knew it. Looked like. Well, he did appear in Brave and the Bold and DC Superhero Girls. Film Freak, I don't think he has. Victor Zsasz. Some might be asking, has he appeared in any cartoons? He appeared also in Arkham, but that was it. Cornelius Shark. No. Yeah, you could say some villains make cameos, but that depends upon basically what they want to do here. But I probably think the biggest debut, aside from maybe Azrael, is probably going to be the debut of Bane's henchman. Bird, Zombie. I think it was like Bird, Zombie. I think it was like one other character. And Trog. Yeah, I think that probably for these three, they're probably going to make their anime debut with this very movie. Yes, definitely. But we'll find out and see later on, okay? So yeah, that's pretty much it. If it took a video, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, to notifications. What do you all think I basically announces me at New York Comic Con today? Okay, more tomorrow? Well, I'll find out and see, okay? Next video is going to be what I have, okay? Bye.